Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/AskReddit. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. What's the best toddler complaint you've ever gotten? My nephew had a breakdown and cried when his boot wouldn't fit on his head like a hat. Poor shoe design if you ask me. Just wants to be like Vermin Supreme. My 4-year-old brother told me my water is too soupy. I still haven't quite figured it out. Might I recommend Jello water? Bright, loud, hot, itchy, spicy equals they are all in the category of sensations that are intense or invasive. A child with a limited vocabulary and perhaps sensory overload could reach for whichever of those words comes first to hand. My daughter asked for strawberry ice cream from the grocery store when she was about 4. I bought it for her, and when we got home and she had some after dinner, she started crying. I asked why and she said, I wanted strawberry ice cream without bones. She didn't like the hard frozen pieces of strawberry in the ice cream that she picked out. I thought the idea of ice cream bones was funny. My dad always reminded me of when I was very little. I used to complain that I didn't like the pizza bone crust. I would also refuse to eat corn with the bone, corn on the cob. I like both of them now. I wish I knew what I was thinking back then. My 4-year-old son had a full-blown, hour-long meltdown because his 6-year-old sister was older than him. When my daughter was about 3, we had an hour-long argument about whether the number 13 was a real number. She insisted it was not. She won the argument. My aunt and younger cousin were visiting us once. He was 3 years old at the time, and my neighbors had a 3-year-old as well. They were playing together in my backyard when I hear my cousin scream, "No, I'm 3. You can't be 3, I'm 3," while tackling the other child. When my little sister was a toddler, she screamed she couldn't go to sleep because her pajamas were too spicy. She probably meant they were either too hot or too itchy. I'll start. My 3-year-old complained that his strawberries were too crunchy. My little sister took a sip of my seltzer and said it was too spicy. I don't think I'd like crunchy strawberries either. Work with kids, so I've had so many, but they all tend to blend into one after a while. Desperate for a wee, refused to get out of bed to have a wee, screaming blue murder. Had to be physically put on the toilet to have a wee against her very strong will. TBH, I've had that struggle as an adult. Wake up an hour before your alarm having to piss. But the bed is warm, and you can hold it. 4 times out of 5 I stay in bed. I want milk in my soup, but I don't want it to be wet. They call that cheese. As an adult, I always crush up crackers to put in my soup to thicken it so I get it. The 3-year-old found a mitten on the ground and put it on. He asked where the other one was, and I said I didn't know. He looked down and said, like it was a unique problem, but I have TWO hands. This feels like something that would happen on the show Always Sunny in Philadelphia. My legs are sparkling. This makes me wonder where they got glitter from, and how far they managed to spread it before saying anything. I don't remember what I thought that feeling was when I was a toddler. I do remember thinking exactly that, my legs are sparkling, when I was a bit older and my leg would go to sleep. My daughter had a complete existential breakdown one day when she found out that she was going to have to pee every day of her life. Wait until she finds out about periods. Although to be fair, I'm 35 and still salty about periods. Just wait until she realizes that the poop thing is going to keep happening too. I watched a friend's kid have a total breakdown because he wanted to have eaten ice cream. The thing was, he had ice cream. It was his dessert, and it was in a bowl in front of him. He could eat it. But the fact that he had to go through the mechanical motions of eating, to get the later point in time where he had had ice cream, was really just too much for him to bear. Watching tiny humans grapple with cause and effect is fascinating. 6-year-old was falling behind during an afternoon walk back from the playground, claimed it was so far his feet were bleeding into his socks faster than his body could absorb the blood. When I insisted he hurry, he said, "You go ahead, I have blazing speed and can catch you whenever I want." Mom, this fish makes my ears sour. Might be allergic to fish. TBH, I sort of get that. Some smoked fish gives me a timely in my throat that sometimes feels like it's in my ears if it's particularly strong. A kid asked for an envelope. So I gave her one. She started screaming and crying, "I want an envelope." She meant cantaloupe. I spit my drink out on this one, pointing to my boobs, crying, and asking why I can't feed him. Because I'm your babysitter and I'm 15. I've been there. Although the nanny was older. Ice cream is too cold. I've just had I want my hot chocolate cold. My son asks for his ice warm. Sigh. My niece, when she was 3, got upset because her ketchup was too spicy. So I told her to just eat her fries without the ketchup. She then cried because the fries weren't spicy enough without the ketchup. I can see this. I assume the kid used spicy to reflect intensity of flavor. Some food are bland by themselves, but the sauce adds too intense of a flavor. You need something in between. Bruh. They ordered a quarter pounder, only cheese, no meat, no bun, through Uber Eats. We tried calling multiple times, but they wouldn't answer. They kicked off blue murder when a box with 2 cheese slices was delivered. I'd say that was a toddler complaint, haha. Reminds me of a kid ordering a lettuce sandwich at a sandwich shop I worked at. He insisted, only bread and shredded lettuce. We asked if he wanted meat or other veg or sauce or even some salt. Nope, just lettuce on bread. Then he complained that it didn't taste good. So we had to remake his lettuce sandwich. But he got the message that he wasn't going to be able to complain again. What did they expect? My niece recently was upset about being served food in the little bowl, and not the big bowl. When her food was moved from the little bowl to a big bowl for her, she had a meltdown. After a fair amount of crying, she was able to explain she didn't want the food from the little bowl placed into the big bowl. I suppose once in the little bowl the food was forever tainted. Cousin of mine had similar issues. Kraft dinner had to be served in a bowl with a fork. If a spoon touched the KD, even if it wasn't the part he was eating, it was poison. Any KD that touched a plate was also poison. He wouldn't sit at a table where us barbarians ate KD in such a vile manner. At almost 4, my son didn't have the vocabulary to describe things as blurry or out of focus. One day he swiped my glasses, put them in, and said in the most betrayed voice I'd ever heard, "IT makes everything so ugly." For a while my kid pronounced blurry as bloody. Everywhere we went, she'd be exclaiming how bloody everything was. Now that I've been working at home, I have a desk set up in my bedroom. Whenever I give my 3-year-old grief, he tells me to go back to work. When my kids get in trouble and are tired of dealing with the consequences, they tell me the same thing. Now that is great. A real boss in training. This gravity is too sticky. Future astronaut right there. My 2-year-old broke down because it was dinner time, not lunchtime. Bonus, she crawled into my bed at 4 a.m. Christmas morning, crying that she wanted to color, and I needed to get her a pen, then fell asleep on my face. My daughter had the same problem many times, but we settled on a compromise. When it's dinner but she wants to call it lunch, she can call it lunch. It sounds simple, but it took serious negotiations. And she reminds us frequently that we've told her she can call it lunch even though she knows it's dinner. It's a whole thing. Are you a princess? I'm a guy. It made my day anyway. My daughter claims that her bearded woodsman of a grandfather would be the prettiest king in the whole universe. He agrees. Don't let anyone stop you from the guy princess you are. You're a great princess. Wanting to put a diaper on for bed, not wanting to take the underwear off to put the diaper on. My little sister, laying on her back, staring straight into the lamps, my eyes hurt. Then stop staring at the lamp. No. Is your sister a moth? The orange part of your feet, calloused heels, is making my macaroni taste bad. Stop putting calluses into the macaroni, man. Parmesan. This was my nephew. Crying because his brother was eating the steam from his Sunday roast dinner. My 2-year-old puts her hand in front of the dog's mouth and cries when he licks her. She might be teaching it not to lick through positive punishment. We have a growth room in our lab with intense purple lightning where upon leaving everything looks green for 15 to 30 seconds. Once we were giving a tour to a class of 4th graders and showed them this phenomenon. Once it wore off, one kid exclaimed, "Everything's back to normal, I hate normal." We have that quote saved on the fridge. What a great quote for when the pandemic ends. IDK if this is too gross, but when my son was 3, he had a tummy bug and came to me crying that his butt threw up. One of my kids got sick and said but made the wrong kind of poo. When my oldest son was 2ish he farted and turned to us and, with an impish grin, proclaimed, "Bottom burp." At 32 he still has that impish grin and still enjoys farts. Not toddler, but still relevant I think. One time my mom was having my little brother, 6, do an online placement test type thing, and one of the questions was count to 50. My brother then claimed he could count to 100, to which my mother said you only need to count to 50. A tantrum was then brought into existence because he wanted to count to 100. My mother proceeded to tell him he could count to 100, but he refused because apparently she wouldn't let him. Said tantrum lasted a few hours. I yawned with my mouth really wide and my little sister told my mom I was trying to eat her. When my daughter was 3, I told her to stop trying to draw on the dog with crayons. She threw the crayon on the floor, looked me dead in the eye and yelled, "Daddy, you're ruining my life." My kid learned to cycle with trainer wheels of course. Once the rear wheel got in a rut, so no amount of pedaling would move the bike forward. The bike was subsequently abandoned because it was broken. It took me days to get the kid try the bike again. My son used to complain that he had a tummy ache in his ear. I got ear infections a lot as a kid. This seems like a legitimate workaround for vocab limitations. It's the wrong same, took weeks to figure out he was referring to the apricot and peach yogurts. LOL my little brother, when he was 4 liked ice cream so much, so that whenever he got one he'd be so delighted to eat it, but when he'd be about to finish it he'd begin sobbing that he didn't want to finish it as he'd have none left then. I can understand that, I am sad when I finish my ice cream. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.